What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here, and today we are looking at another deck profile. Today, again, for Neonectar, something a little bit different than my previous build. If you have seen that on the channel, I believe this is actually a better option for a best of one kind of format. We are going to be looking at another list for Ines Premium. So the reason I'm really saying that this is better for a best of one kind of format is that basically it's decently easy to counter this, but if your opponent is not expecting it, this has like a wild element of just like rogue and able to take out pretty much any deck so long as you get one resource that you pretty much need throughout. And I'll show you what that is in just a little bit, but I definitely believe this is a stronger best of one deck. Don't really bring this into a best of three format. If your opponent's any sort of intelligent, they'll definitely deny you that resource that you need, and yeah, just kind of put you in a funny spot overall. So with that being said, let's hop right into it. I'll show you guys the deck profile and then the G zone. All right, getting into the deck profile here. I'm in the middle of like moving right now, so I actually forgot a bunch of my mats, so I'm on top of my desk right now, but hopefully it's not that bad of a background. But again, just like my other deck profile, we are actually starting off with 3 Ines. So Ines right here is a decent card. Still, again, defensive bulky. You can pop this down, get a couple things off of it. Works with 1 or 2 other strides alternatively aside from Ines as well. I feel like it's just like a really solid ride up if you have to do that, which this deck really centers around a different ride up, but if you have to do it, this is an option as well. Again, just with that defensive interaction, I don't believe this deck has like the hand size to really survive naturally. So with that being said, like basically you call things down, you spam it, you abuse that second skill of when your unit is placed on rearguard circle, gets 5k, and that's not just during your turn. So again, that's defensively, you can be rocking that as well. So still solid in my opinion. This is like my favorite Vanguard to really be on. An alternate choice right here over here is going to be 2 of Maiden of Stan Peony. So this is an older card, came out of Festival, not Festival Collection, Clan Collection, one of the earlier ones in general. It's actually a pretty decent card. Again, if you need to ride up, it's okay. But it's really like one place, call up to 1 plant token, a rearguard circle. If it's on Van, you get to call 2. If you're afraid of getting your board locked or just bound out in general, and all you want to do is like, you're not afraid to ride up, this again is solid. Anything that spams tokens, I feel like this is a better choice for it. I know it's a little like meta kind of dependent, but right now I think Chaos Breaker is really good. Narukami still, I think, gonna have its little bounce back. So with that being said, you don't want to get your stuff bound out. This is actually a really good option to kind of go into as well. Not as defensively as good, but puts a lot of pressure on. You could just straight up win through this card sometimes. So 4 Ines and then 2 of these Stan Peonies. Next up over here, I feel like I got to kind of talk about this as a package, but we are going to look at 2 of these Cyclones. So not Cyclone, sorry, Thunder Elemental, Barrow Green, and also 4 of the grade 2 counterpart to that, which enables the superior ride. So what this does over here, let's start off with the grade 2 actually. So act on Van or rearguard circle if you have 4 or more units without any continuous act or auto abilities, counterblast 1. Search your deck for up to 1 of these guys, ride it as stand, and then shuffle your deck. And if you road, you may turn a Cyclone from your G zone up, face up. So essentially Cyclone, for every Cyclone that's face up, whether that be in G zone or on Vanguard circle, you get an extra 5k to your token units because your token units do not have continuous act or auto abilities. They're just blank, pure blank units. Really, really strong kind of synergy here with the tokens in general, and I feel like Neonectar is the best clan to really abuse that. So if your opponent gives you 1 counterblast, essentially, like, they could be on grade 1 and you can still technically stride. Stride technically with 2. There are other ways you can kind of countercharge, but it's not a guaranteed kind of thing, and this build we're not really focused on that. But if, let's say, they swung at you on grade 1, you had 2 crit, you could actually stride while they're still on grade 1. And let me show you over here. So this guy, the Thunder Elemental, the first skill we just don't use, so I'm not even going to go over it, but its second skill, act on Vanguard Circle. If you have 4 or more rearguards without any continuous act or auto abilities, counterblast 1, stride to face up Storm, Elemental, Cyclone from your G zone on your Vanguard Circle. So again, just being able to stride, your opponent, you have 2 counterblasts, your opponent is now on grade 1 technically. It's insane. Even if your opponent's on grade 2, like, still absolutely insane. You flipped up your Cyclones and essentially made your first real Ines ride. Not Ines, I'm sorry, Katrina ride. Did I say Ines this whole time? I might have been saying Ines. You make your first Katrina ride actually lethal, which is super important to close out the game. And we basically look to just, you have to get this off every single turn. If you do go into like the regular kind of ride up, grade 2, you can grade 2 game in this. It's not as strong as the regular Ines build, but I feel like you have to kind of get this off in order to win, put yourself in like a really solid situation. And here's where the part where like essentially you can't play this in a best of 3 comes in. Your opponent, again, if they have any shred of intelligence, they're gonna know to just deny you the whole way. Just don't swing. Make you grade 2 game, which you can do in this game, in this deck, which makes this what I feel like still decently viable. But they're gonna know how to counterplay this, hopefully. And not to say you're going to lose immediately, but like a big portion, a lot of the wind is taken out of your sails for this. So best of 1 kind of cheesy rogue strategy over here, in my opinion, but again, super clutch and just so easy to kind of pull off in this deck. It's like really not bad at all. You will hit this the majority of the time so long as you have that counterblast. And to kind of help us continue along that line of just like consistency, really hitting that, we have 4 of the Horticulture Elf. So this is a new grade 2 fixer. Auto on Van or Rearguard Circle, once per turn. When this unit attacks while boosted, you get to counterblast 1, call a plant token to Rearguard, and that unit gets an additional 5k until the end of turn. Good for a little bit later, just with the multi-attack. Also good for grade 2 gaming if you don't have the the elemental over there, the Cray Elemental grade 2. Basically also just lets you, when you call this down off Ines, just like swing, get another kind of token out for the cost of a counterblast. Its second skill, auto on hand, at the beginning of your ride phase if your Vanguard is grade 1 or less. Discard this card, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 2 card or less from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. So this is extremely good for finding things that need to, maybe generate tokens, maybe just find that grade 2 that can then help you then superior ride. Like, this is super useful, and it's really good for deck thinning too, in a way. Like, if you have multiple copies of this, I believe you can actually just start doing it like 2-3 times for however many copies that you do have in your hand. So really helps you with the deck thinning, and it helps you set up some of your G Guardians later as well, returning 2 things back to your deck with the same name. Ditch 2 of these in hand early game. You've already set that up, so just be careful in the Narukami matchup with that. But overall, really solid, very powerful unit in terms of consistency and just getting an extra attack off a little bit later into the game. We're no longer running that the one that got reprinted in the premium collection. Previously, the one that copies the names, the 9K, the old G unit. I kind of took that out for this one in here. You can run it, and I believe in the Ines build, and it's a little better, but this one over here, like the slower Ines build, defensive one, but this one I feel like that's better, much better indeed. Next up here too, just another consistent card. Sometimes you just want to pop something down, grade 2 game, whatever it is. Like, this is a 10k body, this is just generates another plant token. Very useful, just exactly what you need to do at times. And the thing is too, like the Storm Elemental one, the Cray Elemental, that it can be used on Rearguard Circle, so you can dig a little bit further. If there's, you can't find it, you have to ride this. It is what it is. Just do it, and maybe you could find that other grade 2 through other means a little bit later. It's just not a bad card, and again, when you're calling it later off of Katrina, just generating an extra plant token is very good overall. So 4 of that. You can maybe cut that down to 3, but I just like it at that 4 personally. Next up here too, honestly the MVP in the grade 1 lineup, we are running 4 of the Burrow Mushrooms. So Burrow Mushroom is a new card coming out in the D series for kind of like the Grand Fia support, but it's just general kind of Stoichia support. Act on Rearguard Circle, put this unit into your soul, call 2 plant tokens to Rearguard Circle, and if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Grand Fia, blah blah blah, it doesn't really matter, into soul 2 plant tokens. You're trading 1 card in hand for 2 of your 4 requirement for the Cray Elemental, which is super important. Like, this card really makes or breaks the deck. Also, later into the game too, it's still really good because when you're on Katrina, you've successfully flipped up a bunch of Cyclones. Your tokens are absolutely huge, and just converting a 6k body from your hand, a 5k shield, into like a 50k, 60k column is nuts. So this is really solid. It's something that you need to include. I think of this is like an absolute include at a 4 of. There's really no debate in my mind about that. Next up here too, something that I personally really like, 4 of this card. This is going to be Maiden of Flower. How do you say it? Which was that? Carget? I don't know, there's something on there, I can't really see it, sorry. But when this guy is placed, you just call a plant token on Van or Rear, which is important. And then on the drop zone at the end of turn, retire 2 plant tokens, return this card to your hand. This ability may be used with a card of the same name only once per turn, so just getting that extra 10k in hand, or just, that little extra something in hand, it is really worth it in my opinion. I think that this is good for just clearing your board afterward, not giving your opponent something else to swing into. At that point, they're not really swinging into much else anyway, but really just setting you up for success throughout all stages of the game. Again, call this off of Katrina, it spawns a plant token. You can put this behind your Vanguard, boost some of the other rear guards that need to be boosted to go then counterblast and call another token out. So it just really just falls into and extends your plays a little bit more. It just helps you out, does exactly what you need to do. Very simple, very easy, no cost to it really, so I'm running it at a 4 of. Next up over here too, I don't think in this build we really have a soul issue, but still like this one over here. When placed, this is Maiden of Sweetberry. So when placed, call up to 1 plant token to Rearguard Circle, and if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Soul Charge. We don't really care about the Soul Charge in this build, but Ines does sometimes run through it, and if you haven't successfully pulled off a bunch of Burrow Mushrooms, maybe you do run into a bit of an issue overall. Not a huge, but still 2 of them is good. Also, there's a G-Guard that does Soul Blast, so there's not really a resource problem, but it's good to have that. Anyway, second skill over here continues on Rearguard Circle. During your turn, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets an additional 5k. This was pretty cool in my opinion, just because early, if you are striding up or doing that superior ride, you might not have a full 5 tokens on board kind of deal. ideally you would like to, but just getting that extra 5k boost, making that magic number, the 13k, just really helps in general. So I personally like it. I think that this is a good card to include. I think at 2 of, it's just fine. You can kind of tamper with that ratio if you really want to, but over here, next up, there's just times where you do find yourself like in the need for a counterblast. So when this guy is called down, this is Water Lily Musketeer Ruth. When this unit or this other unit is placed, or your other unit is placed on rear guard circle from your deck, retire this unit, countercharge 1, which is pretty big for a Katrina play later on. Because if you are looking to multi-attack, you need that counterblast, and therefore like this can really save you in that scenario. You're not really calling from deck a whole lot in this current build. So I know I mentioned there are cards and combos that you could kind of do within Neo Nectar that allow you to do that, to kind of stride up on that like 1 counterblast grade 2 turn. But I feel like you're swinging for the fences there a little bit too much, sacrifice some consistency for that play, and overall it's really just a bit more of a risk. And I think that at 2 of, this is fine for like later in the game. If you want to focus more so on that, like sure, run some of the other Musketeer cards that call off the top, try to hit this, like just go through that like counter charge and try to get onto that stride immediately with that 1 counterblast. But when I was trying that, it was just, like I said, too much of a stretch. It was just like too much effort for something that only paid off every so often. And I think that, in a game that values consistency a whole lot, reducing your variables like that is very important, and I don't think that play was really viable. So lastly, over here in the main deck, just running 1 Elementaria and then 1 of the starter. Just kind of need it. It's great in premium, obviously does what it does, and just a starter, any starter will do. Cool, let's pan out and get into the triggers now. All right, starting off with it over here, 4 of the Heal Guardians. Just think that in this point of the game, it's pretty necessary. If your opponent does a similar thing where they're striding up on you, or like superior riding, it's important. Not that superior rides are like super common at the moment, but if you're grade 2 gaming, you could hold out with that. If they deny you some damage, you need a counterblast on your ride up turn, whatever it is, like, those are good for it. Just no point really not to run them at this point in the game. Next up, over here, I'm actually missing one. I think that I left this at my other house right now, but this is going to be 8 crit. Should be 8. Should be 1 more of that one. You can also use the counter-charging Musketeer one if you really want to. There's another one too, I believe. I'm not 100%, but any of the crits will do. I think 8 is good. Otherwise, you can swap it into 4 of the draw triggers, 3 of them being Sentinels because we have the Elementaria in here, so obviously you can't run a 4th, but I do value the draw power. The draw power in this deck is not absolutely insane. You're winning through like sheer pressure, force, just ability to kind of accelerate through the game. And I think that draw power is lacking just a little bit comparatively to some other decks in the meta right now. So, upping it by 1 more is not the worst thing in the world. And then lastly, I'm actually running the vanilla one over here because you're always in a point with Katrina where you're going to have 2 other units when you swing. I just think it's like too impactful not to do it. Early in the game, I think that it's important maybe to hit like the other overtrigger, but I'd rather plan for my blowout turns where, again, trying to superior ride over here, and like with that in mind, I think that you're swinging, you're getting more drive checks earlier than other decks technically, and I think I want to see more value putting pressure on through the form of this overtrigger personally. Like, you can totally run the other one, it's fine. I think too, with the festival collection coming out, I have to really reevaluate if any of those Cray Elementals swap in, but for right now this is fine. Again, it's a cheaper alternative as well. You can totally do whatever you want to do with that, but yeah, that's just my take on it. So thank you guys for watching all of this so far. I'm just going to ask that if you are enjoying the content, maybe you leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel at this point, and let's hop into the G-Zone next. All right, the G-Zone is pretty simple. Obviously, I've been talking about it the whole time. Katrina, 4 of them, absolutely no question. You can get away with 3, but I think 4 is definitely more safe. Just the card you want to stride into every single turn, essentially. I mean, 98% of the time I'll do it. There'll be an odd time where I won't, but I'll kind of get into that in just a second. But obviously, when the swings, turn a card from your G-Zone face up, call the same number of units as the number of plant tokens on your rearguard circle, and then all of your plant tokens do get 10k throughout the entire turn. So that's, I'm sorry, when placed. I don't know if I said when attacks or whatever, but super solid. Flip up the Cyclones over here, which we are running 4 of. Cyclones then boost up all of your grade 0, or actually just the continuous without any continuous skill, anything like that. Basically all your tokens by 5k for every copy. So if you did the superior ride, you already have 2. By the time you naturally stride, you should have 3 of these face up, meaning all your plant tokens get a plus 25k. So again, 2 plant tokens in the same column becomes 60k. You're going to multi-attack in this. Your columns are very meaningful overall. So this is, like, I feel like a really solid strategy, really good strategy. Again, it's kind of like that best of 1 mindset where you're hoping your opponent doesn't really realize But at that point too, there are other builds that don't rely on this, so they could sometimes, just risk it and give you that counterblast. So if you're running this, good for you. Next up here too, we are running two of the Ladislava. This is okay with Ines if you call the Ines down, just because you have it on rear. You call it down or call down the other one to the Maiden of Stand peony. But overall, I think the Ines works a little bit better. There are some other ones too you can go for. Just calling down another rear guard, restanding them over and over, and they get basically powered up when other units are placed on rear. So you can make them really, really bulky, and all of a sudden, you attack with them. If you're not afraid of your board being blown up by some G-Guard or something like that, you can just attack, then restand them, have them crash in for big numbers again. That's pretty much it for the regular units. I don't really care for other ones. Again, 98% of the time I'll go into that. There's just the weird opportunity where sometimes I'll go into that if they flip my stuff somehow. It's the Mega Colony Stride that nobody uses and stuff, so just the backup. But over here, a very important G-Guard. This is actually the reason we kind of lived through some turns. Sacred True Dragon, Rain Breath Dragon. So when this guy is placed on Guardian Circle, choose up to one card from your hand, call it to rear guard circle. Till the end of turn, that unit gets continuous on rear or Guardian Circle, resist. If you call to your unit, that guy gets 5k until the end of battle, shield. So 20k shield, call down an Ines, pop off the Ines effects. Hopefully you have an Ines on Vanguard Circle already. You search something else, you pop it down on rear, get something else out of it, potentially another 15k, just from the Ines defensive capability of when something is called, give it 5k, on top of the 20k shield right there, on top of whatever else you really have in your hand. So, and that's a lingering 5k for the rest of the turn per unit that you call down, so you could go from a base 13 all the way up to a 28k kind of attacker. And in a format coming up where I think Excel will be, it's weird. So it's going to be the Heinley game. How many people are running it? What's the meta gonna? It's going to be this yo-yo effect in my opinion, but could potentially help you survive some of the Excel onslaught that is coming. I think some of the Excel decks are definitely going to make a kind of a comeback in my opinion. This can kind of help. I feel like this deck is decent throughout that format as well. Next up over here too, the new G-Guardian, Flower Princess of Dedication, Robertina. So basically you just return 2 cards with the same unit from unit name as from your drop to your deck, and then you countercharge one. This guy gets an additional 15k until the end of battle. So not too bad, just solid for the countercharge. We're just returning units so you can call them out with Katrina again, just decent to have overall. Over here, countercharger, just a flip, you don't really need it too much. This guy is decent, Soul Blast 1, when placed on Guardian Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do until the end of battle, this unit gets 5k, then if the number of your rear guards is 1 or less or 4 or more, gets an additional 15k, so it could turn into, a 35k shield, on top of something that your Ines might already be bulky. It's just, it's decent. It's a 1-up in there. Not terrible overall. So thank you guys so much for watching so far. Again, if you are enjoying the content, maybe leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. Definitely trying to get to that 2k mark before the end of the year, so I would appreciate all the help that I can get there. I see every comment, see every like. Thank you guys so much for all the support so far. I can't believe we're at 1600. So thank you guys so much. This is Alex signing out.